Hello, welcome, bienvenidos, shalom. Thank you for coming to the workshop on how to shut down and transform a military base site with Thea, Valentina, Gardellin of Italy and Pagán from the nation of Puerto Rico in the Caribbean Sea. Vieques is an offshore island of the archipelago and a colony of the colony, which is Puerto Rico. I invite you to join me in a heart-centering moment to unite us in our intention to create a culture of peace and compassion within the global community. As brothers and sisters, let us send our love across land and sea to all our relations. We send a special blessing to the children of Mother Earth who are suffering the chaos that reigns in our fear-driven age. Let us breathe as one for humanity. You're welcome to close your eyes. This is short, but it's necessary for us to unite. Ábrete, corazón. Ábrete, sentimiento. Ábrete, entendimiento. Deja al lado la razón y deja brillar el sol encendido en tu interior. Es tiempo ya. Thank you, brothers and sisters. For more than 6 decades, about 1 trillion pounds of explosives were dropped on Vieques by the US Navy, NATO, and its allies. The entire island, 20 miles long by 4 miles wide of paradise, was transformed into a toxic nightmare and a health hazard for all who call this place home. Consequently, our soil, air, and marine environment were contaminated with toxic metals concentrations, including Agent Orange, napalm, and depleted uranium. This legacy of pollution plagues us to this day, with an ongoing health crisis where there is no hospital and public services of transportation to the main island for medical attention are not dependable. Although Vieques is currently presented as an ideal tourism spot, the toxic chemicals remaining even after 17 years of surface cleanup of this superfund site and the UXO in the area's waters tell a very different story. The Department of Interior manages a wildlife refuge for unsuspecting visitors. And today, we face Yet another form of invasion and injustice on Vieques, land grabbing and gentrification by the rich and displacement of the native population. Displaced from their land, which they fought so hard to protect, by converting themselves, our natives, converting themselves to human shields in the impact area to stop the bombing. Well, we stopped the bombing. We forced the Navy to close the base. I want to leave you a very telling, beautiful, graphic presentation done by Al Jazeera just a few years ago, which give value to our resistance and the victory over the greatest power in the world without one shot being fired by us. I repeat, we stopped the bombing. We closed the base. But there's still so much to be. La lucha continúa. And here is that Al Jazeera video for your information. Thank you.
I'm in one of the most beautiful places in the Caribbean. This is the island of Vieques, which is in Puerto Rico. But what you can't see are the thousands of active explosives left behind here by the US Navy. That's because for decades, the Navy trained for war by bombing this island. And the way they're going about cleaning up their toxic mess is actually hurting the locals and the environment.
Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, which means residents here are American citizens. But as a small island off the main island, Vieques has suffered years of neglect. And now, with no main hospital after Hurricane Maria and little economic opportunity, many are leaving. At the same time, wealthy Americans from the mainland are buying up prime real estate.
This house is listed for $4.5 million.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's worth every penny.
Even though parts of the island are still off limits.
Yeah, I don't want to go over there and get blown up.
Nobody wants to go over there and get blown up, that's for sure.
This peaceful trail I'm on is where the Navy trained for war and dropped hundreds of thousands of bombs for years. Today, it's a national wildlife refuge, which is ironic because it's simultaneously a Superfund site full of toxic munitions that are still littered all over the land and sea. And I've actually seen signs like this that say explosive hazard everywhere.
A Dropbox family plan gives you and up to 5 loved ones a personal Dropbox account to store your own memories, as well as a
Until 2003, this refuge was a U.S. Navy range where the military trained for conflicts like World War II, the Vietnam War, and the Cuban Missile Crisis. The land, which makes up one half of the island, is now one of the most hazardous waste sites in the U.S. The Navy's been cleaning up the remnants of their war games by blowing up old bombs, a process called open detonation, which they insist is safe. But some residents are concerned about the health effects from the chemicals released by each new explosion.
What type of munitions are we talking about exactly that the Navy left behind here?
They have basically used everything but the kitchen sink.
This is Daniel Rodriguez. He's the EPA's point person in Vieques. The EPA's overseeing the cleanup.
You can find large munitions, like 2,000-pound bombs, and munitions as small as 20 millimeters. So you had all kind of training activities here for mortars, drop from planes, shoot from boats. These are munitions that were not disposed on the ground, they were fire, and they didn't function.
The Navy has admitted to using toxic chemicals in Vieques, including napalm and depleted uranium. The EPA lists over a dozen contaminants on the island.
I think that we happen to be collateral damage to the military agenda and to the federal government agenda.
Myrna and Ismail are local activists who spent decades trying to kick out the Navy. Now they're fighting for their lives.
I am a cancer survivor.
However, in my family, my husband passed away. That was a total metastasized cancer. And his problem then with the heavy metals was arsenic and uranium. And I had uranium also.
These are your medical records from 2000 when the Navy was still here, and your hair sample showed levels of mercury.
Yeah.
What do you think that was from?
From the Navy.
Ismail was one of over 200 residents who were tested for mercury, aluminum, cadmium, lead, and arsenic exposure, all present in high explosives. Except for arsenic, 33% of those tested had higher levels than the EPA considers safe.
We have no industry here, so where could all the contamination come from? I believe, as do most of the people here believe, that is because of the military practices, the bombing, and the fact that they were experimenting here with non-conventional weapons.
The rates of cancer in Vieques are higher than the rest of Puerto Rico, historically up to 27%, though it's hard to track today since so many people have left the island. And to get treatment, patients have to travel on an unreliable ferry to the main island. Ismail makes that trip regularly for dialysis.
Para yo ir a atenderme, me tengo que ir hoy a las 3 de la tarde. En estos días no hay mucha garantía. En estos días muchos enfermos no rehúsan moverse de Vieques y prefieren cancelar sus quimioterapias, sus radioterapias, sus tratamientos, porque no se atreven a aventurarse a viajar, porque de allá viene un gentío y no se nos garantiza a nosotros el poder regresar. Yo recuerdo las bombas nos pasaban por encima, los cañones nos pasaban por encima.
You've saved all of these memories from your fight against the Navy.
We stopped amphibious landing.
Whoa.
One incident in particular ignited a movement. In 1999, a Marine fighter jet accidentally dropped 2 500-pound bombs on a Navy observation post, killing a local security guard and wounding 4 others. In response, protesters occupied the Navy base, stopping them from conducting exercises for an entire year.
Aquí hubo multiplicidad de apoyo a nivel mundial, no solamente en Puerto Rico ni en Estados Unidos.
Stop the bombing.
Until the military forcibly cleared the encampments in 2000. President George W. Bush ordered the Navy to leave by 2003. This was supposed to initiate a cleanup process, but 16 years later, locals say the cleanup hasn't been transparent or efficient.
How much has the Navy cleaned up and how much is left?
The Navy has surface clear, a little bit over 4,000 acres.
4,000 out of 10,000?
Out of 10,000. Surface clear.
So that doesn't even include what's underground and what's in the water?
That doesn't include what's underground.
So there's a long way to go before this place gets cleaned up?
There is some more to go, exactly.
When will they finish?
That dates varies from time to time. There are numbers being tossed around that could be taken to 2030.
Why is it taking so long?
It's a very risky type of cleanup. When you're dealing with munitions, you can't go that fast.
What grade would you give the Navy so far?
They're doing a good job.
A?
They're doing a good job.
Hardly any independent studies have been carried out to examine the military's impact on the public's health. The Navy consistently points to one controversial government study that concluded there's no negative impact, but multiple scientists, researchers, and locals have seriously questioned the findings.
Cancer is very prevalent in here.
This is Dr. Pagán. She's one of the only general physicians in Vieques. I asked her why people here are more likely to develop cancer than those on the main island.
There must be some carcinogenic higher than the rest of the island.
Why?
Here in Vieques. Oh, because of the bombing.
So if you live in Vieques, there's a higher chance that you have cancer. If you have cancer, you cannot get treatment here, and you have to go to the main island, and going to the main island in and of itself is a big hardship. That feels like a hopeless situation.
Yes, that's why most of them move. They find another place to live.
A 20 años de la muerte de David Sanes. So, Dina, good morning.
Good morning. Buenos días.
Buenos días. ¿Habla español?
Un poquito.
Excelente.
This is Robert Rabin. He was arrested 5 times for protesting the Navy. He now directs the Vieques Historical Archives and hosts a radio show.
Gentrification now is more a danger to the very existence of the culture and community of Vieques as we know it.
So you believe that after Hurricane Maria, there's been more gentrification?
Yes.
Why?
Yes, because people tend to leave. People in Puerto Rico, hundreds of thousands of people have left Puerto Rico to go to the United States. That means they're selling their property cheap, and the same is happening here. People are looking for other alternatives, and so they're, the realtors, speculators, investors, all part of the dynamics of gentrification, are taking advantage of the post-Maria situation.
Robert says the Navy cleanup is yet another example of locals being excluded from economic opportunities.
We had hoped that in the cleanup process would really mean a lot of economic benefit for the community, but of the hundreds of millions of dollars that the federal government has spent on cleanup so far, the greatest amount of that is going to large U.S. corporations that are in control of the process.
The Navy didn't want to talk on camera. In an email, they defended open detonation as the safest process for the site workers handling the munitions, and said the explosions pose no health risks to the public.
Well, I have some familiar faces on the screen. Hello, Kathy Sanchez from New Mexico. Thank you for joining us. Thea, Kathy Gannett, Michael Knox, Destiny Peters, Sarah Slater. Thank you so much for joining us. The devastation of our natural resources and disregard for our human right to good health and livelihood in a clean environment where youth and elders, all our relations, can thrive is a sin against their existence that screams for reparation. Health is life. Sin salud, no hay vida. There is no life without health. The US Navy, according to the Environmental Protection Agency, is currently conducting the removal of surface munitions in the east sector of Vieques. And this action must be completed before a comprehensive study to evaluate the nature and extent of the contamination can be performed. Well, as soon as the time-critical removal of UXO, unexploded ordnance, is completed, the Navy will then conduct a remedial investigation, feasibility study, and they project some 20 to 30 more years of Superfund site cleanup. In communities across the US and its territories, the Department of Defense, NASA, and private industries routinely conduct open burning and open detonation of tons of hazardous munitions wastes in the open air, despite the commercial availability of safer technologies. I quote Lara Ola, spokesperson of the ceasefire campaign: "Safer alternatives have been available for decades and are capable of capturing and treating toxic emissions. However, they have rarely been developed and never in less powerful communities." Read Vieques. He recently signed a memo acknowledging that OBOD lacked the controls needed for efficient and complete combustion of wastes, yet the current regulatory structure of EPA still allows the open pit burns to continue under interim status or special permits. Read military. In partnership with the ceasefire campaign, Vidas Viequenses Valen, our organization here in Vieques, works for a complete national ban on open burn pits. There is no safe way to burn hazardous wastes. And what this does is to keep us in a status of terrible pollution. It's immoral not to use the alternatives available. We've protested, we've marched, we've lobbied to get a closed detonation chamber for the Vieques cleanup. And with the help of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, received $10 million for the Navy to acquire a detonation chamber. They invested our money in a chamber that handles 10 pounds of explosives per burn and is so small I could tow it with my recreational vehicle. Unacceptable, criminal. Throughout its colonial history, the archipelago of Puerto Rico has served as a laboratory for many notorious experiments, including coercive sterilization of our females, birth control pills in the 60s, presented as a means for pregnant women to manage the pain of their menstrual periods, whatever. That's a far cry from a birth control pill, which is what was being sold actually to the women. And Monsanto, testing grounds today in the southern part of Puerto Rico. This is colonialism. Colonialism is itself a social experiment designed to strip us of our rights, our culture, our confidence, and our power. We are stripped of our power to dream. And the US reinforces its message of our relative worth and ultimate disposability in countless ways. But because of the challenges that we have faced, we are still here. And because we have been forced into saving ourselves, we have come to know how strong we are And so the struggle continues. And so la lucha continúa. And so we give the struggle. I close with this quote from Frank Joyce, a fellow of the National Council of Elders. We know that each and any of us can truly help to build a new world where all life is valued and cherished. The culture of peace has our love and attention for ourselves, for our children, with our children. Thank you, fellow seekers of peace. I leave you now with my sister in Italy, Thea, Valentina, Gardellin.
Thank you very much, Myrna. Thank you very much. Thank you also for having called me your sister. It was something I was thinking about while you were speaking, how close we are all related. As many Native American tribes would say, mitakuya o yaizin, all my relations. And thank you for having sung this well at the beginning of your presentation. That was really, really touching. Thank you. Okay, well, Myrna was talking about Puerto Rico. I'm going to talk to you about Vicenza in the north of Italy. If Alex can kindly start the video now. When we finish with the video, I'll be talking to you about our movement in Vicenza. Thank you, Alex.
Okay, this one's for Gabby.
This is our permanent encampment. We had started just outside the site where they were going, or where they wanted to build a base. We met here regularly. Thousands and thousands of people came through this encampment, and we met here regularly, practically every evening, and we had general assembly twice or even 3 times a week. This is me, a little younger than I am today. This is the Basilica Pagán and the City Hall. This is our radio, it's all done with this radio.
Where trouble melts like lemon drops high above the chimney top, that's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow. Bluebirds fly.
Benvenuti al presidio.
Dreams that you dare to, oh why can't I?
People of all ages were coming to our encampment. People of all ages adhered, not only from Vicenza and the Vicenza province, but throughout Italy, and many people from Europe as well came to our demonstration.
What a wonderful world.
C'è tensione in vista della manifestazione di domani a Vicenza contro l'allargamento delle
This is
notizie che si
national
hanno, l'ha detto ieri il ministro dell'interno, non sono tranquillizzanti. Li
They were
vogliamo
trying to scare
ricordare
us out of our
tristemente famosi,
demonstration. National
drammaticamente
TV was
famosi
talking about
durante
it,
il
and
vertice
constantly
del G8 a
insisting do
Genova
not
2
demonstrate
settimane
against
fa.
military base.
The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, singing, how do you do? They really say, I love you. I hear babies cry.
Daria Fon, Daria Fon was Nobel Prize winner for literature. They also came to Vicenza to help us during our resistance. So I hope you enjoyed this short video. I'm just going to briefly introduce you to our movement, to who we were and what we did until they succeeded in building the base. The camp, it was initially called Dalmolin. That's where this thing comes from, now Dalmolin. They then changed the name into Gardellin because they thought that Dalmolin had been too abused during these many years of demonstrations and encampments. So I'll just start reading now this brief presentation. Nord Dalmolin is a movement of citizens and associations opposed to the construction of the new U.S. Army base at the Dalmolin Airport in Vicenza. Vicenza is located in the north of Italy, about 50 kilometers from Venice, which would consolidate the other U.S. settlements already present in the Vicenza area, such as Camp Ederle and the site base, Pluto and Fontega. That means we have four military bases in Vicenza. Gardellin, Dalmolin, Camp Ederle, Pluto, where they used to stop nuclear weapons, and Fontega, which is also an underground weapon warehouse. Allora, it would go to settle in the northern area of Vicenza, bordering the municipality of Caldogno in the current Dalmolin civilian airport of Vicenza, which should serve the U.S. to reunite the 173rd Airborne Brigade and thus become, according to the Pentagon, the most important logistic base of the Army, United States, and Europe, especially on the war actions in the Middle East. The 173rd Airborne Brigade, currently located between Vicenza, Aviano, once again in Italy, and Germany, would transform itself into an action unit ready in a few hours to move to the various war scenarios that could open in Africa, the Middle East, or Eastern Europe. The birth of the No Dalmolin movement. In 2004, the United States of America made a request to expand the base in Vicenza. The Italian government, then chaired by Silvio Berlusconi, involved the mayor of Vicenza, Enrico Hulbeck, who expressed his favorable opinion. Only in 2006, after the evaluation of the project by the Joint Regional Joint Committee, did the people of Vicenza learn about the project. They were doing everything by themselves. They never even involved the citizens of Vicenza. And that's when our strong opposition arose, which resulted in the establishment of the No Dalmolin movement. Despite this, Mayor Hulbeck has the city council approve an opinion in favor of the U.S. requests. The definite go-ahead came from the government chaired by Romano Prodi. So after Berlusconi, we had the government change once again. Romano Prodi gave the definite go-ahead on January 16, 2007. Opponents of the enlargement declared it to be an edict of Bucharest. That very same evening, the 16th of January, 2007, myself and hundreds of people like me went to the train station in Vicenza. We lay flat on the railway tracks and stayed there for hours and hours and hours, blocking the entire train transport which connects the north of Italy to the south of Italy. And that caused a hell of a problem to the government because they would have never expected us to do something so important as blocking the entire train traffic of Italy in one night. So the same evening, a group of militants of the movement gave life to a torchlight procession which ended with the occupation of the railway station platform. The same night, the tent that will house the Nodal Moulin movement permanent garrison was erected right on one side of where the military base was supposed to be built. On February 17, 2007, the second national demonstration against the US base takes place. In a circular route around the city center, a procession parades, which according to the organizers includes 150,000 and more people from European countries and the United States. With the participation of the Nobel Prize winner for literature, Dario Fo, and his wife. The demonstration on February 17, 2007 is followed by marches, direct actions, and 3 festivals held in the late summers of 2007, 2008, and 2009. The Palladian Basilica and the Vicenza prefecture are symbolically occupied, while in January 2009, the Nodal Moulin occupies the civil area of the airport for 3 days. That means we were cutting fences, occupying, more or less raising hell throughout the entire city of Vicenza. In 2008, in the administrative elections of April 2008, the center left wins the elections by leveraging the issues related to the base and offered citizens the concrete possibility of stopping the construction of the new American military base. New Mayor Achille Variati proposes a new agenda on the project to the City Council and promotes a popular consultation to give voice to the citizenship. But the referendum is blocked 4 days before it takes place. The government decides that we are not allowed to vote for or against the construction of the military base, and they block it 4 days before. But the City Council, which accepts the appeal of the Presidency of the Council of Ministers and the Ministry of Defense against the ordinance of the Veneto Char, which is Veneto legal system, and in fact declares the approval of the military installation as a political act and as such is unquestionable by administrative judges. The Nodal movement on the evening of the cancellation organizes a demonstration in the streets and calls for a self-managed consultation for the 5th of October. Dozens of gazebos are set up by hundreds of volunteers to vote in front of the buildings that were supposed to host the referendum. At the close of the polls, there were almost 25,000 voters, 28% of those entitled to vote in the municipality of Vicenza, almost all of whom, 95%, opposed the construction of the new US military base. In February 2009, the construction site for the new base was opened. On February 10th, just a day after, dozens of citizens tried to block the access to the airport, but 400 riot police officers reject them and arrest 16 people. At the end of January 2010, activists of the Nodal Moulin movement infiltrated the expanding American military base, and a dozen of them staged a protest by chaining themselves to a crane and mounting on a trolley used for the work. Demonstrators also denounced, with the help of photographers, the pools of water present in the construction site, which would indicate a damage to the aquifer caused by the works. Beneath the base, we have groundwater passing, and while they were putting in the poles, the fundaments for the base, the groundwater pipeline was entirely destructed, and that caused a hell of a damage also to the water supply of Vicenza, deeply polluting the water, which was full of sand and debris. The complaint leads because everybody was complaining about the groundwater being full of sand and debris. The complaint leads the mayor, Variati, to request from the relevant bodies precise and documented answers. The idea of a park that can offset the impact of the expansion works and beginning to make its way. In April, the Municipal Council of the Vicenza City launched a document on which most of the political forces converge, calling for the construction of infrastructures, a ring road, an electric public transport line, the strengthening of the local university, and the creation of a green area. So we cannot say that we were successful in our intent, because the base in truth was built and is still being worked on. They're still enlarging it. But in truth, our success was in managing to, let's say, gain the land adherent to the base back for the citizens of Vicenza. The municipality and the province of Vicenza find an agreement with the Italian government for a compensation plan, which includes, among other things, the construction of a new section of the motorway ring road to the city, and thanks to a resolution, the financing of 11 million and 11.5 million euros for works in the park east of the airport, which the No Dalmolin Committee would like to transform into a peace park, which is what we succeeded in doing. On July 7th, the Memorandum of Understanding between the local authorities concerned, the competent ministries, and the responsibles for the motorways and highways of Rome decide to agree upon this. The document ratifies the commitments already signed: the creation of a green area located east of the base, the construction of a northeast ring road, and the opening of a technical table relating to electric public transport. The No Dalmolin Presidium defines the agreement a victory for the movement that have fought against the US base in recent years. Military base changed from Dalmolin into Camp Gardellin was inaugurated in 2013. So this is as far as the base is concerned. Many of the things that happened in Vicenza are similar to, if not identical to, what happened to Myrna and the activists in Puerto Rico. So we had to face a long-term resistance. As I mentioned before, we had installed this huge encampment close to a side, practically to where the base was being built, and more than 500 citizens of Vicenza bought land bordering the base. So that was something really, really important, which we succeeded in doing. I'll just give you some details regarding the park itself, the Peace Park, and that is October 2017, the town hall agreed that the initial cost estimate for the Parco della Pace, or the Peace Park, was 12,300,000 euros, already allocated on the basis of the initial project presented on the 3rd of October 2017 with the Variati City Council. At the time, the House of Peace in Vicenza had also asked to be able to use one of the hangars in the park, because there's a runway and there are 3 hangars, because as I mentioned before, the Dalmolin base used to be a civilian airport, and probably the runway would have been used for warplanes to land or to take off. So in truth, for us, it was a huge success to be able to succeed in obtaining this piece of land called the Peace Park. So at the time, the House of Peace in Vicenza had also asked to be able to use the hangar, one of the 3 hangars, which was to be used as a multi-purpose hall for concerts and various events for the city. They wanted to make a school of peace there. In addition to the 8.6 million euros allocated by the state and 3.76 million euros allocated by Metropolitan Welfare and Urban Regeneration tender, in 2017, Variati had asked the Ministry of Defense to finance another 500,000 euros for the restoration of the rainwater drainage system to the park, which had been severely damaged by the construction of the Dalmolin base, which is what I had mentioned beforehand, of damaging the groundwater supplies of the city. In 2018, the project underwent changes again, and it was determined that there could be an editable margin of 50% on the initial 2017 project. Work on the park itself has slowed down several times in these years, partially due to three suspensions for the removal of unexploded bombs of the Second World War. On December 21st, 2020, the Defense Ministry contributed with another 500,000 euros to the park for the restoration of the rainwater drainage. March 23rd, 2021, Mayor Rucco, which is the new right-wing mayor of Vicenza, personally plants the first trees in the park, stating that 63% of the park's works have already been completed and that another 70,000 trees are on the way. Mid-July 2021, the Rucco Council believes that the name of the park should be changed and no longer be called Peace Park, but should have a different name, because they kind of wanted to cancel all the memory of the Dalmolin resistance and the resistance of the city of Vicenza. The opposition does not agree, and it seems as if the subject will no longer be touched. September 19, 2021, the park is inaugurated with a great city party and a balloon ride. But in truth, the park does not exist. There's nothing there, practically nothing. All the things that should have been done for that peace park to restore, to return the park to the city of Vicenza after the construction of the base. The park was supposed to be consigned by mid-2019, and the park is still where it is. That is totally inaccessible, closed, fenced in, and that's it. So even the inauguration was a fake. Then on February 18, 2022, Deputy Mayor Celebron informs the media that the first excerpt of the so-called Park of Peace will open to the public in June 2022. On March 13, 2022, 43 trees are planted in the park in memory of the 43 victims of the Morandi Bridge in Genoa. On 11th of April 2022, the works are stopped due to the surge in prices of raw materials. So that's the excuse the mayor uses for not finishing what he was supposed to do. On June 13, 2022, Mayor Rucco communicates that the municipality will have to allocate another 500,000 euros for the construction of a playground inside the park. On June 16, just a few days later, Mayor Rucco announces that the park will not open before the end of summer due to a surge in raw material prices again. Okay? And on the same day, Mayor Rucco, together with the commander of Camp Ederle, inaugurates the new emergency road exit of the Dal Molin base. So the question is, if they don't have the money to finish the park, and they've already spent all the money that had been allocated, which is more than 13 million euros, how can they find the money to build a road across the park? The emergency exit from the base to the Sant'Antonino Road, which is the road which crosses part of the city, the center of the city. So we know that in addition to being an important green lung for the city of Vicenza, the Park of Peace is also considered a natural water detention basin close to the Caldogno rolling basin. Therefore, in the event of a flood, the park would be submerged by water. And this was the reason for the initial project. The reason that the initial project was designed with many trees, green areas, lakes, and canals, precisely in order not to compromise their use. The current mayor said he was very worried about the possible running costs of the park. Therefore, he established that the area close to the rugby field will be used for sports facilities and a bar. But the question we have is, why would you build sports facilities and a bar in a place that should be a park with 70,000 trees, canals, lakes that can be submerged in case of floods? That's another big question we've never had an answer to. So besides resisting against the base, we managed to, access this incredible park, and now we'll have to start fighting again for the park, for the peace park. I hope this was interesting for you. I hope you enjoyed it. If Alex can show us the project of the park, how it initially was supposed to be and how it initially was supposed to look like. Okay, what you can hear, can you just stop a moment here, Alex? What you can see here, the gray area on your right, on your left, is military base. Green area on the right is the park, is the Peace Park. So you can see that the Peace Park more or less might even be a bit bigger. It's 630,000 square meters. Dal Molin, Delvin is about 600,000 square meters. The park is even a bit bigger than the base itself. As you can see, all the houses around there. Now, when we went to Washington in May 2007 to protest against the construction of the base, you know what they had done? The Pentagon had taken pictures of the surrounding area of the base and of the mountains in the background and had entirely canceled houses, basilica, mountains, from the pictures to justify that the military base there and the runway were absolutely indispensable for world security and safety reasons. When we went to Washington, we brought the true pictures there and we showed them. We said, this is your picture, this is your photograph, without the mountains, without the houses, without anything. And this is the real picture with the mountains in the background, with the houses all around the base. How can you build such a huge base right in the middle of a city center? There was no answer for that because they would have never expected that we would have managed to find those pictures that they had used for their own propaganda. And here, from these maps here, you can see exactly where the houses are. They're all around, all around. This is an overhead view of the base park. Okay, these were the projects of how the park should look with the various lakes and canals, because as I mentioned before, in case of flood, the park becomes a natural basin, natural water collection basin. So obviously it can't be transformed into anything other than a natural park. Okay, here's just a list of numbers of how the park would be then divided into various areas for the people of Vicenza to be able to use. And then we have the 3 hangars, the runway. Okay. Thank you very much, Alex. I think this is good enough. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Myrna. I think you have a question, Myrna.
Thank you, Thea. I would like just to take the opportunity to mention that you're talking about Italia.
Yep, we're talking about Italia.
I applaud all of the work you're doing there on such a grand scale. Our scale here in Vieques is that of a small tropical island. What is most important is that we are all working together for peace. We are all trying to make our efforts create a better world. I must thank World Beyond War for the opportunity to present the Vieques story. And I must mention that today's information, today's work, years and years of devotion, I will recognize at this moment in the person of Robert Rabin, who was one of our greatest guides, fighters for stopping the bombing, for making better the life of Vieques. So here's to Bob, whom we lost, as we have lost so many on this island, to cancer. And I would like also to take the opportunity to mention that if you want to help the little guy, the guy on the back burner, which is Vieques, unfortunately, but which we will struggle and struggle for, there is a website called justiceforviequesnow.org, which is running a petition for a hospital for this island that has no hospital, but does have an ongoing health crisis. And we have a cemetery that grows, and nothing is being done as far as the health services on our island are concerned. So join justiceforviequesnow.org, please, and sign their petition. I would also mention a White House ban on U.S. burn pits at home and overseas is the work that we are doing with CSWAB, the ceasefire campaign. If you go there to information at cswab.org, you can join that petition and let's stop open pit burning worldwide. That is more contamination, more death, and unnecessary in this day and age. So help us. We depend on you. We wouldn't have stopped the Navy. We wouldn't have stopped the bombing without the help of our international brothers and sisters. So we're counting on you to help us now. I guess that closes it for me. It is an honor being with you. Thank you to all of the volunteers that continue to work for peace. Thank you to all of the organizations that have come together for this seminar, this webinar that we have celebrated for 3 days now. Our efforts will glow in history, and our spirits will grow with every step we take towards peace. Thank you. It was an honor being with you. Thank you, Thea. Buena suerte. Thank you, Alex, for the technical help and assistance. And I've got to mention my mentor, Kathy Sanchez, from the Teva Women United out in New Mexico, my sister elder with the National Council of Elders. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Myrna. And I would also like to thank World Beyond War for this incredible opportunity they gave us. This was my third time at an international conference. The first time was in Dublin in 2018. The second time was in Belfast in 2019. And here, and I think it's a great opportunity both for meeting people as well as for talking about what we've experienced, talking about what we live, talking about our resistance, talking about our fights, talking about our sticking together, as you said first, Myrna, as sisters, brothers and sisters, trying to help each other out against war, against militarization, against bombings, against military bases and NATO too. And I think that David Swanson probably has had a huge impact on all of us, on our lives, because thanks to him and thanks to World Beyond War, we managed to be here today, together with, as you said first, all the volunteers who are helping out behind the lines in having this work out well. So thank you, Myrna. It was a pleasure too. You see, I put my clown makeup on.
You're a beautiful clown.
Thank you. You have a beautiful voice. Your song at the beginning, I thought I was going to cry like a baby when I heard you sing. It was so wonderful. Thank you so much, Myrna.
It was really beautiful. On behalf of World Beyond War, thank you both so much. I would like to we have a little bit of time, so I'd like to open it up in case anyone has any questions. If you do have a question, you can either put it in the chat or you can use the raise hand function, which is at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You should be able to use that, and I can unmute you or give you the ability so that you are able to unmute yourself to ask your question.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes, I can
thank you. Thank you both. This is Kathy Wempovi from San Ildefonso Pueblo. We live right below Los Alamos National Laboratory. And the one question that young people are asking is that technically people talk about the nuclear war, nuclear winter, but my young one has been saying that if they haven't experienced it elsewhere, they have no clue about the impacts that it would have on them and where they're at. And so I think they need, like you have shown and shared with your videos, that it is impactful when all the emotions are attached to the story. So seeing it, hearing it, feeling it, and sharing with that elder wisdom of what we've gone through and what it's going to be like in the future if they don't conscientiously choose a culture of peace. So I commend you all for knowing the story, sharing it, but then let's also emphasize how that loving, sharing, caring can help them to gain that confidence in themselves to speak towards the powers that are overwhelming in a culture of violence. So thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you. The work that we do with youth on our island is of the greatest importance for us. Yes, we have to support our youth. We have to inform our youth. We have to live the culture and protect the place alongside our youth. They're inheriting chaos. We want to help them turn this all over. It's all generations, little guys, big guys. We all must contribute to the culture of peace. We all must become peaceful within and always act with kindness, with compassion, and stay smart and stay alert. And don't let them buy our ideals or our dreams with false promises and more weapons and more war. It's time for dialogue. It's time for peace. It's time to keep ourselves alive, my friends. We've got to do that. Nobody's going to come from the moon or anywhere else to help us. It's here on Earth. It's humanity. It's the brothers and sisters working together. Honorable work, essential work. God bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Myrna. There was Destiny who was asking us a question, both of us. She's asking us, she says, I'm curious about the steps you take to first start organizing to shut a base down. How specifically did you galvanize? What was the structure? For example, reaching out to other community members? Well, Destiny, yes. We're lucky, let's say lucky because Vicenza is not a big city. It's about 120,000 inhabitants. Then we have the entire province, and we try to involve not only the city itself, but also the province of Vicenza. And you just start talking to people, you start putting gazebos around the city and leaflets wherever you go, organizing some events, public speaking, our presidium, the encampment with the tent, inviting people to come, organizing dinners and music festivals to involve people and start talking to them, or maybe even handing leaflets outside masses, outside churches on Sunday mornings. These are all activities that you can start easily. You can start them anywhere, and you can have everybody involved. But once you start speaking with your heart, you start speaking with empathy and with belief concerning the things you do, and making people aware of the incredible damage a military base has, the incredible negative impact it has on the surroundings, from groundwater to PFAS, PFAS, which we're finding more and more in drinking water. And whatever, war simulations themselves on the bases and outside the bases, they're incredibly dangerous for everyone's health. If like Myrna said, around military bases where nuclear weapons are stocked, there's an incredible increase of cancer. And that's something nobody talks about, especially not the soldiers, especially not the army. They'll always avoid answering questions regarding this, regarding the state of health of the people who live around the bases. It's just involving people, wherever you can go, from school students to universities to just walking along the streets and handing out leaflets, stopping people and talking to them and inviting them to come to your meetings, to your encampments, to wherever you meet. That's really important, just getting people to know what's happening.
May I cut in?
Sure.
Yeah. I want to mention that taking advantage of every form that you can to put forth your story is a very important thing. And surprisingly, our island, we have had a representative going to the United Nations Decolonization Committee. Every year, the Committee on Decolonization meets. We go and represent our tiny island, an island that is, the treatment has been so unjust, so devastating by the federal government, which is the imperialist who owns us, they believe, who manages our island. No, there is a forum. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to go to something like the United Nations and tell your story and make connections. Work on a big scale from your tiny place. Every every life is worth the time you devote. Every place needs help. And united we stand. So let's stand united. I don't know, the question of setting up a beautiful site from an area that has once been so totally contaminated as ours is almost an impossible feat. However, the nature on this island speaks and takes care of itself in many ways. God works in strange ways. And the nature has rebuilt itself after Hurricane Maria on this island. While we were being ignored, or while we were having paper towels thrown at us by once President Donald Trump, as his expression of here, help yourselves, throwing paper towels, disgusting, lack of respect for humanity. Don't stand for any of that. We have to be true to ourselves. If we want to make this place that we abide in thrive, we've got to start right with this heart right here and keep going. And that beating heart will reverberate and we will change things because we are totally devoted to the change that must come. And that change that must come, I repeat, begins with each and every one of us. Thank you.
I think you're really inspiring, Myrna. Really inspiring. Probably your long experience, probably your resistance, probably the place where you've grown, probably your spirituality, your ancient spirituality tied to the land. I can feel that was.
Thank you.
This is Kathy Gannett. I also live in Vieques, Puerto Rico, and I just like to add something to the question, the very good question about that we had from Destiny about how you take the first start. I wasn't here for the first start. I came here in 2000 because I thought as a US citizen, the best thing I could do in my life would be to protest a US military base. And so it's the best thing I ever did, the thing that I'm most proud of. And but before I came here, for decades, the people of Vieques were organizing. First, they were a very small group. I hear stories that for many years in the 70s, 80s, they were a small group. There were 100 people that protested on a beach in 1978, it was, I think, and they arrested and sent people to prison, people 6 months in prison. And one of the prisoners for peacefully protesting on a beach in 1978 was
Kathy, your
murdered.
voice is breaking.
It's breaking? Oh, okay. Can you hear me better now? No? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So there was a person arrested in
Not
78.
now. I can't hear you right now.
Oh, well, maybe there's something wrong with my
There's like an
thing.
echo. Yes.
Just tell the story about Angel Cristobal and then about the unity we had during the time of the protests, that there was an amazing unity between the religious and all other spectrums.
Kathy, I actually think you might be coming in clearly. Myrna, you're freezing for me, so I'm not sure. Other people seem to hear you fine as well, Kathy.
Oh, okay, good. Then I'll continue. All right, good. So what I was saying is that for many, many decades, people protested. They tried this is how long it's been going on, since the 60s, before they finally, the people of Vieques finally threw people out in 2003, is that people were small groups, small protests, they grew. They had this protest in 78 where they threw people into 6 months of prison for just standing on a beach. Terrible. And they murdered one of the protesters that got sent to prison in the Florida federal prison. So despite all that repression and violence against the people of Vieques, they kept organizing and kept organizing and kept organizing. And then in 1999, the final straw was when they bombed their own observation tower. The Navy missed the target by 2 miles and they killed a civilian security guard. And that was the last straw. And what happened for the years between 99 and 2003, when the base closed, was that it was an amazing unity. When we think about the US and the world right now with all the racism and all the isms, anti-gay, anti-transition, it's just terrible. But somehow Vieques had a magical moment where people were united across parties, across unions, across school teachers and children and artists, and that's how it was done. And it was miraculous. I was there for it. It was a privilege of my life. So I thank you for asking the question. It starts small, and the people of Vieques, they did it.
Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone. I think the final talk by Kathy Kelly and the closing remarks is happening in a couple minutes. So people might want to go back into the lobby and then join that final session. But again, thank you so much to Myrna and Thea for your time and sharing your stories and the inspiration. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Alex, for having set up the whole thing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Myrna. I hope I can keep in touch with you, Myrna. I would really love to. I think you're a really inspiring person.